how basketball have helped you or have have helped you or have been part also to connect with other people around the world or other cultures in your professional or personal also experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So my first international experience, as I mentioned, was at age 19, and I was in the Olympic Development Program for the USA, and I got invited as an alternate, and then I went to Russia and Poland and Finland, and it was very interesting because the gift exchange was the first piece. So it was cultural in Europe and Soviet Union before competing to exchange gifts. So something as simple as a whistle or a horn or a cap or a glove or just something. It's the gesture of exchanging gifts, and we didn't have that here in the United States. So it was a little embarrassing, if you didn't have anything. Somebody's giving you something, you got nothing to give in return. But this was a cultural issue that we eventually addressed, and so now we do it. And now, even in the NBA, they do it. They overdo it. They hug and kiss and everything. I'm like, don't be hugging that guy, man. He just got 40 points on you. What you crazy? But yeah, different cultures. And when we played the Russian team, not many of them spoke English, and none of us spoke Russian. So then it was like, okay, we're not really communicating out here. We're just playing and we're competing. And at the end of the days in Russia, which was probably like 4 or 5, I think we stayed over there 13 days, and most of the time we were there. There was just this feeling of a connection, between the players with one another, because our practices were close quarters, and although we competed on the court, we wanted to go have coffee, tea, soda, whatever, food situations, and over a short period of time, I started saying, "Yeah, le veux te ver." I'm speaking Russian in 3 days, and feeling comfortable with it. So the game allowed that to happen. The fact that we were there as basketball players, and yet we became so much more because of the time allowed to connect and learn something about them, teach them something, and figure out how to make it a win-win situation.
Did you? I would only add that you're right. It is a language, and as the world seeks common language to solve or find commonality, it's not just to use basketball as a diplomatic tool. They call it sports diplomacy. You have a game, and then we can talk. It's to look at basketball, its principles, and see that as a model of a way to begin to find each other. Meaning, you have to be in space together. We have to be in a room. And then we have to engage in a cooperative exercise. And that cooperative exercise builds trust. And off we go. I think the game itself is the language.
And you go through a range of emotions. Yeah, because you can get mad at them. You can get mad at your own teammates, if they miss you or whatever. And so you go through this range of emotions, from joy and ecstasy to depression to anger, and so you experience all of those things while you're in that space. And then when you leave the space, hopefully you're over it, but maybe you're not.
Did you know I hold my high school record for technical fouls?
We didn't know that. Thanks for sharing.
I wanted to fully disclose while I'm at the United Nations.
You know what happened when they had the ABA-NBA merger, there was one of the referees, he gave me a check because I was just holding the ball. And he said, "You really didn't do anything, but I wanted to be the first guy in the NBA to give you a check." I said, "Bullshit."
This is working. Just to introduce myself, my name is Paul Cossum. I'm from the UK mission here to the UN. First off, I want to thank you for everything you've done for the sport of basketball. There's a reason best player in the world was number 6. I think that's because of you. Personally, I have a profound appreciation for the sport. I would not be in this room without it. I could not tell my story without talking about the sport of basketball. My question to you, I think you touched on it a little bit there, was the internal dialogue you have to cultivate to really exercise positive character on the court. Not beating yourself up for your mistakes, not sort of punishing your teammates when they perform under par. And I think that sort of source of reflection can transcend the sport, and if we're talking about incentivizing peace, is sort of profoundly important for the leaders who can pull on the levers of power, if we think about the sort of number of conflicts around the world today. So my question to you would be, how can we sort of use this internal dialogue with the relevance specifically in basketball in terms of cultivating a character, and how can we transition that into geopolitics and international affairs?
Yeah, I think there's a language on the court, off the court. So, for me, I love being Dr. J on the court. Dr. J was a cape, could fly, all these things. But when I got off the court, I wasn't Dr. J. I was Julius Erving, and I always introduced myself. I am Julius, and I wanted people to look at me not the same way they looked at that basketball player. And there are other situations with artists and musicians, who have this persona on the stage and off the stage. They're exactly the same, and I find that there's a contradiction there, because now you have to go deeper to find out what this person really is about. What are their values? What are their principles? Who are they? If they stay masked behind the public image all the time, then it's slower for them to even realize what they need to do and how they need to be. And if it's hard for them to do it, it's definitely hard for friends and neighbors and family members to do it. So I came to a conclusion about, my public image pretty early, 19, 20, 21, that but it wasn't going to fly. And I allow people all the time, they could call me Doc or whatever, but once you start saying Doc and Dr. J, you have less of an opportunity to know who Julius Erving is.
I'll just take one internal dialogue, the internal dialogue of the immigrant, who says, "Do I belong?" And one answer to that is to see a space of access, easy access, where people who have little need little to go and begin to find a sense of belonging. Those are basketball courts. That has worked in other countries as a tool to gather people who are totally different and begin to let them engage in an intimate, personal way. And I think it's the only sport that I know of that you can go do alone. So this kind of, it sounds symbolic, but it's very practical. It can knit together intentionally a multicultural society if you give that space of easy access. It's small. So Manchester, Bath, London, where you can't have the elongated field, it's not so easy. A basketball court lets a lot of people come together and feel like they're a part of.
Thank you.
Dr. Julius and Professor David Hollander.
for this initiative at the United Nations to have a World Basketball Day. Lithuania as a basketball country specifically very much appreciated that, to have, basketball as the first team sport with its own international day. And as a matter of fact, basketball has been playing a tremendous role in modern history of Lithuania. We also have, a couple of players right now even in the NBA continuously. So that's very important. Cannot agree more with the premise of the resolution and the professor's book that basketball break cultural, social, racial, and other barriers, promote mutual understanding and tolerance, and as such significantly contributes to peace. The positive role of basketball is also very visible here in New York City, having 1,800 playgrounds. We are very privileged here to explore, the positive contribution of basketball ourselves. Also, the world famous Rocker Park, where Dr. J also gathered massive crowds with his tremendous skills. So just want to, thank Dr. J for taking the time and celebrating this very special occasion with us. And my question maybe would be, we touched a little bit upon that, the evolution of the game. So we talked about, the global is becoming more global, international, but maybe what other aspects, you could also pinpoint throughout the time that has basically changed or is still evolving. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I think that the followers of the game, the supporters of the game, the sponsors of the game, the fans of the game, they sort of dictate what direction the change is going to go. There was a time in which, slam dunking was kind of like supreme, and you wanted to see teams where they had guys who could slam dunk, and now you want to see guys who could shoot three-pointers. So Steph Curry's been an influencer in that regard, and obviously during the Wilt Chamberlain era, the dipper dunks or whatever, those are things that you didn't see every night, and you wanted to see more of it. So I think the powers that be, which would be the commissioner's office and the board of governors, in terms of when they evaluate the different rules and changes in rules and how they want the officials to call the games or whatever, they take a look at that, and they are sensitive to what the fans want and what the sponsors want.
Thank you very much. I'm Dmitry, Deputy Permanent Representative of Russia. I would like to thank you for kind words about Soviet Union and Russia. But my question would more of emotional part. It was always an enigma. I also played myself, as you can guess, for my university back in Moscow. What is the enigma of how the professionals cope with being nervous, and still they do score? I think this is an enigma which for me is like, it takes you an effort to shoot and to score when there's a big crowd, there's a big money at stake, big future, so on and so forth. So that's still an enigma of professionals. Of course, I understand as professionals. So if you can highlight a little bit how you do that magic. Thank you.
It's not magic. He's in L.A. Most of the time he's in LA. But I think when you minimize the pressure, when you simplify it, and you realize it's just like when you're standing over a putt in golf. Okay, one or two things can happen. You make the putt or you miss the putt. So when you're at the free throw line, you're either going to make it or miss it. So there's always that 50-50 chance on paper, but then I'm an 80% shooter. So it's not 50-50 because I'm an 80% shooter, and I'm gonna make 8 out of 10, but there's still gonna be those two misses. So dealing with the reality of the moment, I think, should lessen the pressure, and then the more experience you have with being put in that situation, then the easier it becomes, because you realize that failure is not really an option. If you miss, you didn't fail. All you did was kind of conform to what the statistics say. But if you miss 8 times and make 2, and you're an 80% shooter, something's wrong, and it's generally in your head. So I think pressure in sports, it's generally exaggerated because sports, even though you're getting paid to be out there if you're a pro, it's still a game, and games, nobody goes undefeated forever. You're going to lose at some point, and you might as well prepare yourself for that. If you are going to play a sport at the highest level, there are going to be some losses, and you're going to have to take a hit every now and then. But if you win most of the time, and I'm very fortunate that I saw something on YouTube recently where in my career that I won 67% of the time, and there's only like 5 people who have done that or better. So that was a good thing. It made me feel good. Now I'm 73 years old. They tell me now.
Now when you're negotiating a contract.
Hey, how about that?